House in Baltimore, some Oriole baseball with the Nationals and the Orioles getting together in the DMV here. Got a guy here that lives here in the DMV. Was a longtime sports writer in the Bay Area as well as here at the Baltimore Sun. I still see him at Ravens practices and Ravens games when they let me in from time to time. He is one of the lead writers at Sporting News, covering all sorts of things and writing about whatever he feels like writing about. He is David_C_Steele, and of course that's with the silent E, much like George and maybe as much like Sage, but we prefer George around here at this point. He does not have a green tongue or wrestle in steel cage matches, but sometimes it feels like a steel cage match when you're writing about racial relations in sports in the modern era, right, David Steele?
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing that I've been doing it as long as I have, and you've been doing this. You've been in this business for quite a long time too, and the same themes continue to come up, and you sort of realize that, why am I writing the same things in 2017 that I was writing in 1987, and the same themes in the same ways with the same effects? It's pretty bizarre, pretty baffling.
It really is like a dog whistle to some degree, right? Like Adam Jones gets the peanuts thrown at him. It was the banana a couple of years ago. It's the N-bomb in the outfield. It's a bunch of people out there that no speaky and no heary. Then some goof like Kurt Schilling pops off about something he could possibly have no clue about, and rushes to the defense of nothingness. And meanwhile, people that have pigmentation in their skin are just supposed to act like this doesn't happen and never happened and it doesn't matter anymore. I think it always matters, and I think in the case of Adam Jones, and I know Gene Fugit, his father-in-law, who's been in my home for coffee on a couple of occasions and who I have a lot of respect for as well. David, I don't know what to say, right? I mean, have I been discriminated against? Sure. I mean, I'm discriminated against every time Peter Angelos opens his doors for his baseball team. I mean, I'm not allowed in, so I know what that feels like to have your nose pressed up against the glass and feel like you've been slighted in some very, very unfair way, especially when it just comes to breathing and walking while black and, asking questions if you're a journalist. I think everybody has felt that, but, I don't know what it's like to walk in the skin of an athlete standing in the outfield having that sort of thing done to him in 2017. And I know that during my adulthood, I see all of what happens with soccer and in Europe, and I used to see them have signs, end racism, little phrases that soccer would attach itself to. And I would think to myself, well, they can't be having a problem with this in Europe, right? I mean, they were integrated before we were. Boy, I mean, this is a global issue, not just a local issue. And I know last week it was made to be a Boston issue, but this is going on with Colin Kaepernick right now, and I know you're writing about that too.
It's all over the place, and I think that it strikes home for a lot of people, and I can certainly relate to Adam Jones with certain experiences that I've had in Boston. Everybody I know can tell you about experiences that they've had in Boston. They've had experiences with the sort of pushback that they've gotten when they talk about what has happened in Boston. But this is a global thing. It's a universal thing. It happens everywhere. And I mean, there's so many layers of this. But probably the one that pushes the buttons the most for me is that it wasn't, 2 months ago, month and a half ago, people were literally calling him Captain America, calling him an American hero because he was playing for Team USA in the World Baseball Classic. The home runs, the catches, the drama, the heroism.
The red, white, and blue. I mean, he wore red, white, and blue like a real American, not like one of these fake Americans.
Right. I mean, he was... He was representing this country in its national pastime against the rest of the world. This is literally what we're told. And when I say we, I'm talking about anybody who's a person of color, and I'm talking about specifically anybody who's black. We're told these
black baseball players still exist. I mean, look, there's Adam Jones. He's black. He plays, and there's McCutcheon over there. See, black kids are still playing baseball in America. Trust me. I saw it on the Oriole Vision when Adam ran out to the one place where they actually play Little League inside the city and gave him some shirts. And I mean, this is sort of this fallacy that goes on. And every time I put a baseball game on, David, I'm not a guy that, has been on my high horse about any racial relations. I mean, hell, my homeland of Venezuela is falling apart right now, and all of my cousins, all my aunts, all my uncles, they all live down there, amidst this. And, for political unrest and racial unrest and all the issues we have running the country at this point, I still can't believe that you could stand in Fenway Park and drop N-bombs at the top of your voice loud enough for the outfielder to hear it, and no one does anything about it. But 4 days earlier, I was at a Caps game watching a 40-year-old man berate a 70-year-old man at a hockey game in front of his family, and nobody did anything about it. I mean, dropping F-bombs in his face. Everyone's afraid to stand up for other people, I think, in our society right now because, move on. 5 minutes from now, that guy will be gone, and he'll go be a racist over in that corner. He'll go yell at the right fielder instead of the center fielder, and we'll just move on, and let's not mess with our little sanctity here right now. And I think there's a lot of that going on in our world.
Yeah. People say, it's not my problem, it's your problem, suck it up. Everybody's got problems, and things are tough all over. And that's literally the response that Adam Jones got in a lot of areas. I mean, I literally saw people saying, you should just grow thicker skin. That's the way.
Yeah,
of the
you're
world.
making $20 million a year. You should expect that.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. You should be grateful that you're here, that you're playing baseball, that you're making all this money, that you're in this position. You should have nothing to complain about. That's literally what he's told. What all athletes are told. This is in every sport, and we talk about baseball in different cities and things like that. Every city and every sport, like you said, they're playing. I mean, look, we're looking at the Stanley Cup playoffs all over the place. We know the stories about Joe Ward from a couple of years ago, what was said and written about him and to him after he scored the goal against the Bruins. We've seen what P.K. Subban has gone through after, while he was in Montreal and since leaving Montreal. There's literally a handful of black and of players of all the colors in the NHL. They go through the same thing. You see what goes on at football games and NFL games, walking through the parking lots, the epic tailgates, things like that. It's not just yelling and cursing just because they're, supporting the other team. It gets very nasty, very racist, very sexist. Walking around the concourse, in the stands, over the tunnel as the players are walking off the court. And there you are in baseball. And in the NBA, where the fans are the closest. You're going to be hearing at those games as well.
Well, Boston is its own place, right? If this happened in Tampa or if this happened in Kansas City, it would be a different narrative than this happening at Fenway Park with a bag of peanuts, right?
Yeah. I feel like the bag of peanuts, honestly, has been minimized in all of this. That again, like you said, that's a dog whistle. I mean, the N-word is not a dog whistle. Let's be clear about that. But yeah, throwing peanuts and throwing bananas. And again, this is universal silent language that's going on here. But no, absolutely, that in Boston, exactly. I mean, when players are telling you, the CC Sabathias and other black players around the league are telling you, Boston is the only place where we're hearing that yelled at us, or where we're having those objects thrown at us, and people are still denying it, calling them liars, saying they're exaggerating it, saying they're blowing it out of proportion, saying stop picking on Boston, saying it's an isolated incident. I mean, and that is the perfect recipe for things never changing and never getting better. They're too protective about it. They feel that this is something they should be allowed to do all the time, and that the people who are the targets of this need to learn how to deal with it better. Well, and this has been our lives. This is literally what we do our entire lives, is deal with this day after day after day after day, no matter where we go.
Well, in the case of Adam Jones in Boston, other than, redneck racist idiot in the outfield, which, I mean, if you've seen our election, if you've seen who's running our country, if you've seen them cackling at taking away health insurance from people like my wife who are two-time cancer battlers, which I'm offended by. But I don't know what can be done if you're the Boston Red Sox, if you're Rob Manfred, other than throwing someone out in the outfield and saying you did this and, wrestling them out in handcuffs and saying get out of our stadium. I find it almost laughable when the Red Sox say, well, that racist will be banned for life. Are you kidding me? Are they going to go buy a ticket on StubHub on Wednesday and go out to... Yeah, I mean, banning someone from a stadium, that might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard as some sort of prescription for what we did, right? I mean, talk about fake accountability. There you have it right there. We're not going to let that guy in anymore. We're not going to identify him, but we're not going to let him in anymore, right?
Yeah, empty gestures. That solves nothing. I mean, we've seen those before. Empty gestures and empty statements and saying things like, we have zero tolerance for this. It's like, well, clearly you had tolerance for it that night because he heard that happen. And as far as anybody knows, nothing was done about it. I don't know what the answer is, honestly, because, whenever you say things like, hey, let's have more security or let's have the fans be more accountable, there's this incredible pushback as if they're the ones who are deserving of protection rather than the targets of their abuse. They'll say we should have the right.
Well, they'll say we paid for the ticket, right? We paid for the ticket.
Right.
That was
we paid for the ticket. Yeah, exactly. Our hard-earned money pays their salaries. And, I mean, we know what the arguments have been. We've heard that. And look, I mean, we've seen so many cases of how fans get treated, jerked around by the leagues, by the teams. We know that they don't get the best bang for their buck. The prices are crazy. The parking, just all the different ways that they're not. But even if you talk about a person who wants to go there, just watch the ball game, have a good time. In this case, root for the Red Sox. If the person sitting right next to them is doing this, yelling stuff, throwing things, just embarrassing everybody around them, and they know that there's nothing they can do about it. Because
I felt that way at the hockey game 2 weeks ago. I mean, it was outrageous, like what I saw. I mean, it wasn't racist, but it certainly was a younger person berating the not elderly, but an older man who wasn't going to punch him. This guy could say anything he wanted and get away with it. And I mean, I was outraged by it. I mean, it was something that I didn't want to witness for sure. I think everybody in the section was outraged, but the guy, wound up sitting there in the second and third period, and, after sort of destabilizing the section, and nothing was ever done about it. And, I don't know what some 55-year-old, semi-elderly African-American woman who's the usher in the section coming 35 rows up to the top, I don't know what she's going to do about it. You know what I mean? That's when the police get involved. And, look, and the teams, to some degree, do want to look the other way because they don't want violence and problems in their upper deck, but they don't want to handle it. They don't want to incite it. And I guess, there's the things that go from the front office down, and what we're seeing in the NFL right now, and I think what we're seeing in America right now with the Colin Kaepernick thing is as obvious a thing as we've ever seen. I mean, in my quarter of a century of doing this guy is a capable NFL quarterback who doesn't have a job, not because he beat his girlfriend, not because he had a gun and shot himself or poured bleach on his girlfriend, wink, wink. It's because he had a political view that, doesn't agree with the president of the United States right now, so he's not going to work in the National Football League. I think this is a story that's going to be covered all summer long, and it's going to be talked about.
Yeah, and you know what? There's a thread that runs through all of this, that there are the leagues, the organizations, the teams, the front offices, the management at the very, very top that has decided which group of fans, which part of their audience, which portion of the public they're willing to pander to, and who they would rather satisfy, as opposed to anybody else. So when they say things like, we don't want to get the fans mad, we don't want to get them upset, we don't want to get them turned against us if we sign Colin Kaepernick, or if we push back against the fans who are yelling the N-word and throwing peanuts and bananas at Adam Jones, it means they've taken the side of those people who are against, this other huge group of people who don't want to put up with that, who are the targets of this kind of abuse, and who have who would rather see you judged on your ability as a quarterback and have to at least support what you're doing, what that particular player is doing, then, that sends an absolute message.
Well, there are consequences, as Colin Kaepernick's finding out. I mean, that's what the woman from Major League Baseball said to me. Hey, you pissed off the owner. There are consequences for that. We're taking your press pass. You're not allowed to practice what you do anymore. You're not allowed to do what you do for a living anymore because you made us angry. And that's where we are with Colin Kaepernick right now, because he certainly hasn't broken any laws. He hasn't broken any rules. I think he's even gone out on the ledge the last couple of weeks in, making a social media case of I'm not a bad guy, and certainly no teammate of his. I mean, we've had Torrey Smith on the show amongst other many times, and there's no one that wouldn't say he can't play quarterback. Now, did he play quarterback well? Is he a starting quarterback? That's for you to figure out, but he's an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, he's an NFL quarterback. He's a capable NFL player. He's proven he's proven more than multitudes of quarterbacks who have been signed in this offseason.
He came one handoff away from me not writing a book in 2013, right?
There you go. Exactly. That's what we're talking about. Exactly. Anybody else with that resume would have been in the camp long ago. Would have been one of the first people snapped up, because we know how quarterbacks are valued in this sport. We know that if you don't have, if you don't have a starter, you can completely forget it. If you don't have a backup, you're in big trouble. And yet we see the state of quarterbacking in this league, and yet he is a guy who is really one missed throw, maybe, a ref looking the other way, which we probably, that's another conversation another time, from holding the Lombardi trophy.
Jim Harbaugh agrees with you, by the way. Just just making sure you know that. John doesn't see it your way, though.
I would think that. I'm sure that's quite the discussion.
David Steele joining us here from Sporting News. You can follow his journey at David_C_Steele, and that, of course, with the silent. He also the co-author of Silent Gesture with Tommy Smith. And, you're the one that always gets called on the banana peels and the peanuts and the Colin Kaepernick. But there's a point where it needs to be heard, and then there's a point where it needs to be dealt with. What would Adam Jones say the next time he comes back to Boston? That things got better because he didn't get yelled at? I don't really know what we expect the teams or the leagues to do about this, other than have guys like you and me shine a light on it and say, here's the light, look at it, it's wrong, do something about it. But we've been doing that in this country for, let's be honest, ever since Andrew Jackson protested the Civil War that he died before.
Exactly. And that's just that extra level of opposition that we have to climb through when we see this, because we know how prevalent that entire mindset and that entire thought process is. So yeah, it's been a lot of time spent feeling like you're butting your head against the wall, and that you're hitting your head against the ceiling over and over and over and over again, because the pushback against this and the logic that's pushed in order to push back against it just gets more difficult, more twisted, more illogical by the moment. So, as much as it just goes right to your gut to hear somebody tell Adam Jones that you just got to suck it up, there's a certain element of it where he does. He has to go back there and play. He has to go back there and tune that stuff out. It's literally part of his life and part of a lot of the players' lives when they go into Fenway Park, is to tune that stuff out. And, but at the same time, I think that you can't applaud him enough for speaking up about it, because it got all the others who did face that and never said anything about it and sort of swallowed it and kept it inside. It gave them the opportunity to speak up about it, because the worst thing about something like this is the notion that you have to stay quiet about it. Because, that could be flipped against you. Oh, well, we've never complained before. Well, now they can never say that about Adam Jones. They know that he will speak up about it. He will push back against it. He will do everything that he's capable of outside of, disrupting his own play, and he's not allowing that to happen, to shed light on it. He can do as much as he can just by letting people know in the most simple and basic terms, this is what happened to me, and I'm not going to put up with it anymore.
Well, John Wall's shutting him up there for now, right? Certainly the Wizards get back in this thing. Hey, this looks to be a 7-gamer, right? It looks like nobody's going to lose on their home court, right, until we get later on into the week. But this has been some good basketball. Look, the Cleveland-Toronto thing goes away. Obviously, Utah not putting up much of a fight against Golden State. But these other series, Houston-San Antonio, the battle down in Texas, as well as the Wizards and the Celtics, this is going to linger longer this week. Pretty good series, and I still, on nights when the Wizards can go on 26-0 runs, I believe that they can hang with LeBron for a week, right?
I believe so too. I think that what they've had an opportunity to do, and this is not to jump too far ahead because this is going to be quite a battle to get through this series. But yeah, I think that of all the teams that the Cavaliers would have had an opportunity to face, I think the Wizards are the best equipped to give at least a problem to make them sweat a little bit, to probably steal a game here or there, to stretch the series out a little bit. Because I've felt all along, even when they fell behind 2-0 to the Celtics, I felt that the Wizards were capable of making this a long series because that game 2 went into overtime, and you literally had to have a superhuman, just beyond the realm of imagination effort from Isaiah Thomas with the 53 points in order to beat them in Boston, or else that would have come back here tied with an opportunity for the Wizards to take full control of the series. But all I felt was, hey, they held serve. I think the Wizards are capable of holding serve when they get back on their home court, and that's exactly what they did with a couple of routes, which is just, I didn't think they'd be able to pull it off as dominantly as they did. But, yeah, I always felt that they had the capability not only of winning the series, but if at absolute worst, stretching it out to its limits. So this does look like it'll be a 7-game series because I'm very interested to see who's going to be able to be the one to top the other on the other team's court.
I know you're working on some stuff with Kaepernick, but do you see any end to this? I mean, is he really not going to get signed, in your opinion? I mean, is that the prevailing thought, that he'll be watching football from the outside this fall? I mean, I can't imagine that that's a good look for the NFL either.
It's shifting that way because, honestly, I think when you looked at everything, I think that the initial feeling was that they're going to make him sweat, they're going to push it, but reality is going to set in, and that there's really no way that they would let something like this that could make them look this bad linger on as long as they have.
By the way, Marvin Lewis, drafted Joe Mixon last week, right? So that's fact, right? I mean,
you draft Joe Mixon, you draft, D.D. Westbrook, you draft a guy who literally was going from the draft to go meeting with the police in Cleveland over a rape investigation. But this guy is a distraction. He's a drawback. He's a cancer in your locker room. He's this, he's that. You can't have him around. The fans will not accept it. The organization will not put up with it. It tells you for the millionth time. I mean, this is not a new thing, obviously. I mean, we just saw, Greg Hardy was on the NFL roster, the year before last. The NFL will put up with certain things, but certain other things they just will not put up with. And this has been very eye-opening about the NFL and about the people who run it and about the politics of the people who run it and the politics of the people who they're catering to. I think that can't be emphasized enough. I mean, I think we want to put it on the teams a lot, and that's obvious and that's understandable. But they're catering to their audience, and they think that there's going to be this pushback, from the crowd, from the audience, from the TV people, in their ratings, in their they are worried about upsetting that group, and they believe that they're that upset at that group of their paying audience so much that they will keep a quarterback who's good enough to play in this league out of the league and let people who, are that close to being in prison, they'll let them stay in the league. That's the league. That's the leader. That's the league they want to have. I think we all have to come to terms with that. That's the lead that the National Football League and Roger Goodell and the 32 owners want to have.
He is David _C_Steele out on Sporting News and out on Twitter. You can follow along. You're also writing about Marcus Ogden here soon too, right?
Yes, I am.
A little local angle there.
Yes, and I think we all got a chance to know him a little bit, not just because he was Jonathan's little brother, but also because he was a player here. He stayed here in the area after he had finished playing football. Had a pretty good business going. Had some problems with that business, but has bounced back very, very nicely and has sprung off into a new career. Wrote a book about it a year ago, and I had an opportunity to talk to him right before the draft. And I'm putting that story together right now to talk about what he's done and how he sort of bounced back from where he was when his post-playing career life really hit sort of a rocky patch, and where he has come from that and what he's been able to develop since then. And he really is, he's still the same very cool, very funny guy that he was when he was playing here and when he was around here in the area. And he also had another shot at playing again not that long ago in Canada. So I had a chance to talk to him about that and about how he felt about how his NFL career has gone. And whether he came out of it feeling as if he had done everything that he could.
Well, look, man, if the Wizards get through this thing, I'll be bugging you in a couple weeks. We'll be talking about LeBron and Wall and Beal. You a believer in the Wizards? Do you think they can make the finals in your mind?
I do.
Okay.
And it sounds crazy seeing what the Cavaliers have done. And I don't think it's far-fetched at all to say that they're the kind of team, in the Eastern Conference. And I've always felt that they're really the only team in the Eastern Conference with a real good chance of knocking Cleveland off. And I think we've seen the opportunities they've had during the regular season. Beating them 4 times is a huge chore. Nobody's beaten them once yet. That's going to be, if they make it that far, that's going to be a far, far better series than anybody really is anticipating. So I think everybody ought to strap themselves in for that possibility.
Buckle up. You can find David out at Sporting News as well as out on Twitter. Always great to catch up with you, my man. We'll see you soon.
Absolutely, you the same.
You got it, David Steele. He's a writer at Sporting News and the co-author of Silent Gesture with Tommy Smith. You can check that out at David_C_Steele on Twitter. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. Don't forget about our London, Nashville, and Green Bay Ravens trips. That's under the Road Trips tab up at WNST.net. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.